Nicole Kidman has made her first public appearance since her split from Keith Urban.
We've been through a lot together.
We've got a timeline for it now, and the time is now.
For nearly 20 years, the world watched Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban as one of the rare celebrity marriages that seemed built to last. An Oscar-winning actress and a chart-topping country star, two Australians who found each other far from home and built a life together in front of the cameras. Then, in the fall of 2025, it ended. No scandal broke it open. No single headline explained it. It simply happened, quietly at first, and then very publicly, as the two of them were forced to close the book on 19 years of marriage in front of an audience that had watched every chapter unfold. This is the real story of how it started, how it held together for as long as it did, and how it came apart. Nicole Kidman was born in Honolulu in 1967, while her Australian parents were living abroad. Her father was a biochemist and psychologist, her mother a nurse, and the family returned to Sydney while she was still young. She grew up in a home that valued discipline and achievement, and she found her way into acting through dance and youth theatre as a teenager. By her 20s, she was already a working actress in the Australian film industry, and it wasn't long before Hollywood noticed her. In 1990, she married actor Tom Cruise, and for over a decade she was one half of one of the most photographed couples in the world. That marriage ended in 2001, and it left a mark that Kidman has referenced many times since, particularly around her relationship with her two adopted children from that marriage, Isabella and Connor. She rebuilt her career in the years that followed, and her performance in The Hours earned her an Academy Award in 2003, cementing her as one of the defining actresses of her generation. Keith Urban's story started on the other side of the world, in Whangarei, New Zealand, in 1967, the same year as Kidman. His family moved to Queensland, Australia while he was still a child, and it was there that he picked up the guitar, encouraged by a father who loved country music even though it was far from the mainstream in Australia at the time. Urban was performing by the age of 6, and by his teens he was playing talent shows in small venues, chasing a sound and an identity that didn't quite belong to the world around him. He eventually left school to pursue music, and in the early 1990s he moved to Nashville to try to build a career in the one place where country music actually had an industry behind it. That move came with a cost. Urban has spoken openly in interviews over the years about struggling with substance abuse during this period of his life, describing it as something he battled long before he ever achieved real fame. His self-titled American debut album finally broke through in 1999, and by the time he crossed paths with Kidman a few years later, he was one of the biggest new names in country music, but still fighting old battles behind the scenes. They met in January 2005 at the Day USA Gala in Los Angeles, an event created to celebrate Australians working in America. By her own account, Kidman was immediately drawn to Urban. She has said in interviews over the years that she had an instant crush on him that night, but that he did not call her for months afterward. Urban later explained his side of that delay in an Australian television interview, saying he carried her number around for a long time before he found the nerve to use it, describing himself at the time as not being in a healthy place in his life. When he finally did call, the connection was immediate, and the two of them talked for hours in a way he later described as effortless. From there, things moved quickly. By the middle of 2005 they were dating seriously, and Kidman has said that just months into the relationship, on her 38th birthday, Urban showed up at her door before dawn holding flowers, and that was the moment she knew she wanted to marry him. They married in June 2006, in a ceremony at a chapel on Sydney's Manly Peninsula, roughly a year and a half after they first met. It was, on paper, a fairytale pairing. Two Australians, both roughly the same age, both carrying the scars of earlier struggles, finding each other at the height of their respective careers. But the marriage was tested almost immediately. For months after the wedding, Kidman staged an intervention for Urban, who had already been through rehab twice before they met. Urban has spoken about this moment publicly on multiple occasions, including in a Rolling Stone interview where he described being incredibly grateful that his wife called that intervention, and said he entered it surrounded by a tight circle of friends who cared about him. He checked into the Betty Ford Clinic afterward, and by his own account, remained sober from that point forward for close to 2 decades. In later interviews, including an appearance with Oprah Winfrey, Urban reflected on how remarkable it was that the marriage survived that period at all, describing his recovery as something closer to a spiritual reawakening than a simple medical process. From there, the two of them settled into a rhythm that lasted for years. Kidman continued to take on a wide range of film roles, moving between big studio projects and smaller, more critically acclaimed work, while Urban toured relentlessly and built one of the most successful catalogs in modern country music, picking up multiple Grammy Awards along the way. They welcomed their first daughter together, Sunday Rose, in 2008, followed by their second daughter, Faith Margaret, in 2010, adding to the family that already included Kidman's 2 children from her previous marriage. For Kidman, in particular, family life took on an especially significant meaning given everything she had been through with her older children, and by most public accounts she poured a great deal of herself into raising her daughters with a sense of routine and structure. Publicly, the marriage was framed again and again as proof that love could survive fame, distance, and old demons. Urban credited Kidman for his sobriety in interview after interview, most notably during a tribute event honoring her at the American Film Institute in 2024, where he spoke about how much her support meant to him after he went into rehab. Kidman, for her part, described her husband warmly in interviews across the years, telling one interviewer in 2020 that she felt she was married to a genuinely good man. In a lighter moment during a 2025 interview, Kidman even joked that part of the secret to a long marriage was having a double-headed shower and separate bathrooms, a small but telling detail about how the two of them managed to build a life together despite demanding and very different careers. Urban continued touring for months at a time, while Kidman frequently filmed abroad, and the two of them worked around long stretches of separation for the better part of 2 decades. Behind that image, the strain of 2 enormous careers pulling in different directions was real, even if it rarely became public in any dramatic way. There was no major scandal reported during most of their marriage, no headline-grabbing fight, no confirmed affair. What changed, based on the reporting that has come out since their split, was something quieter. According to outlets covering their separation, the two had reportedly been living apart since around the start of summer 2025, even as they continued to make public appearances together. In June of that year, Kidman posted a photo marking their 19th wedding anniversary with an affectionate caption, and Urban responded with a simple heart emoji rather than a post of his own, a small detail that in hindsight looked like an early sign of distance. The two of them were last seen together publicly at the FIFA Club World Cup in Nashville that summer, appearing relaxed and photographed laughing together, even as their relationship was reportedly already unraveling behind the scenes. Around the same period, Urban drew attention during a radio interview in Australia when he abruptly cut the conversation short after being asked a question referencing his wife. Then, on September 30, 2025, Nicole Kidman filed for divorce in Davidson County, Tennessee, listing irreconcilable differences and naming the date of filing as the official date of separation. The filing confirmed what had only been rumor and speculation up to that point, and it landed as a genuine shock to fans who had watched the two of them mark their anniversary just months earlier. According to the documents that became public, the couple had already worked out a detailed parenting plan for their 2 daughters, then 17 and 14 years old. Under that plan, Kidman was granted the girls for the vast majority of the year, reported at more than 300 days, while both parents retained joint decision-making authority over major issues in their daughters' lives. Reporting at the time also indicated that both parties waived spousal and child support, suggesting the two had kept their finances largely separate throughout the marriage, and that the overall process was handled with more cooperation than confrontation. Just days after the filing became public, Urban was seen without his wedding ring, and he returned to his ongoing High and Alive World Tour, continuing performances that had already been scheduled across the country. His next stop after the news broke was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it became the subject of intense attention simply because it was his first show since the world learned his marriage was ending. Meanwhile, Kidman remained focused on work commitments in London and largely avoided public comment in the immediate aftermath, choosing not to address the split directly. A handful of outlets speculated in the weeks that followed about whether a third party might have played a role in the breakup, but no official confirmation of any such claim was ever made by either Kidman or Urban, and none of that speculation should be treated as established fact. Less than 4 months after the initial filing, the two of them reached a full divorce settlement, finalized in January 2026. According to Legal and Entertainment reporting on the settlement, Kidman was granted primary custody of their 2 daughters, with Urban receiving scheduled parenting time roughly every other weekend, consistent with the parenting plan the two had already signed months earlier. Legal commentary on the case at the time noted that the relatively smooth and fast resolution was unusual for a divorce of this size and public profile, and pointed to the early parenting agreement as a key reason the process avoided a prolonged legal battle. Despite the finality of the settlement, Kidman was photographed wearing her engagement ring at a public event around the time she signed the final paperwork, a small detail that drew attention but was never explained publicly by either side. It wasn't until March 2026 that Nicole Kidman addressed the divorce directly for the first time, in an interview with Variety. She said she was doing all right, explaining that she tries to stay focused on moving toward what is good in her life. She spoke about being grateful for her family and about her intention to keep that family intact in the ways that matter most, while making clear that she did not want to discuss the details of the split any further out of respect for everyone involved. She emphasized that her focus remained on co-parenting her daughters and described wanting to hold on to the idea that they remain a family in a meaningful sense, even after the marriage itself had ended. It was a brief, measured statement, consistent with how she had handled the entire process from the beginning, privately and without inviting further public scrutiny. Urban, for his part, has not given a comparable sit-down interview addressing the split directly, choosing instead to let his music and his tour schedule speak for him. Fans and entertainment reporters closely tracking his live shows in the months after the filing noted subtle changes to his setlists and stage presentation, though it's worth being cautious about reading too much into any single lyric change or stage gesture as a direct, confirmed statement about the marriage. What is confirmed is that he continued his world tour through the fall and winter, performing across the United States, Canada, and Australia in the same period his personal life was making headlines. As for what comes next, reporting from early 2026 suggests Kidman has not moved on to a new relationship. A source close to her told People magazine in February that she was not rushing into dating anyone, and was instead putting her energy into her family, her friendships, and her work. According to that same reporting, she has had light-hearted conversations with close friends about the idea of dating again someday, but feels no pressure to do so, and would likely rely on trusted people in her life to make any future introductions rather than seeking anything out on her own. It paints a picture of someone taking her time, rather than rushing to fill the space left behind. Looking back at the arc of the relationship, what stands out is how ordinary the ending actually was, at least by celebrity divorce standards. There was no explosive scandal, no messy public fight over money, no drawn-out custody battle. Two people who had built a life together for nearly 2 decades, who had weathered a serious health and addiction crisis early in their marriage and come out the other side, ultimately reached a point where they decided, by mutual agreement, that the marriage had run its course. The parenting plan was in place before the filing even became public. The financial terms were settled without a fight. And when Kidman finally spoke about it publicly, she did so briefly, on her own terms, without laying blame or offering more than she felt the public was entitled to know. It's worth remembering, too, that so much of what circulated in the days and weeks after the filing, from theories about a third party to dramatic interpretations of stage performances, was speculation, not confirmed fact. The verified record is actually fairly simple. Two people met in 2005, married in 2006, weathered addiction and long-distance careers together, raised 2 daughters, and separated amicably after 19 years, filing the paperwork to make it official in September 2025 and finalizing everything by January 2026. Whatever private conversations led them there remain private, and neither Kidman nor Urban has offered the kind of detailed, blow-by-blow account that tabloids often imply exists behind the scenes.